I'm Devin.
And I'm Ida.
And welcome to Pandemic Chit Chat,
the podcast where we, two 8th graders, talk about the events of the pandemic through our eyes.
Throughout the past almost year of our lives, Ida and I have been doing school from inside of our home and missing out on many things.
Many 8th graders have shared similar experiences to us, and so we're here sharing a few of them.
This is Pandemic Chit Chat.
Welcome to this week's episode of Pandemic Chit Chat. We're going to start by talking about the events in August, but we might verge on to other things with school and just other events that we did.
Yes, so back in the end of summer last year, back to school season starts and all the children are very sad because we have to go back to school. But this year, it was definitely not that case because we weren't actually going back to school, and neither were many children in the country. And I just saw many images online of schools that were opening up, and then all these kids like in crowded hallways not wearing masks and stuff. And back then, in the beginning of the school year, I think that we weren't ready to open up, and that like calling not opening up was definitely a good idea. But as like the school year progressed, I think that they got too comfortable with online school, and like opening up kind of like went down a little on the priorities list.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, what you just said. And it was a lot of like right into going to school. Compared to last year, there was no like beating around the bush. It was just, this is your assignment, this is your schedule, we're sticking to it. And it was sort of a relief because there was a lot less like ifs that were happening with the school year, or at least for that quarter.
But there's like a lot of differences from like being in school versus like being out of school. But one of the biggest differences is like assignments, because in school it's gonna inevitably be harder than if we're online school, because you know we can do projects, hands-on projects. We're going to be walking from class to class. But now teachers are, I think, a little confused, because when we're sitting on these computer screens all day and it's exhausting, but we're not exhausted by work, and we're not exhausted by due dates and assignments and deadlines. We're just exhausted from sitting at our computers all day. And then by the time school's over, we've lost like a lot of motivation to like get outside and go see our friends, because we're just drained. And honestly, when school was open, it was being drained by work, but at least we were still, sticking to a schedule and, doing extracurriculars and stuff. And sometimes it was hard to get homework done, but we did it. And now I think it's being made really easy so that we can, like adapt to online school. But honestly, that's just making it worse. And it's just reminding me every day that we're not in a normal situation right now. And it really frustrates me.
And the lack of teacher-student communication at the beginning of the year also frustrated me. The beginning of the school year is a time for bonding with teachers and students. It's like, you establish a connection, make sure that the students know help is available for work, family problems, mental problems. But this year there wasn't a lot of connection. It was really isolated.
Yeah, and I mean, look for words. It's very difficult during this time. And in the beginning of the year, I was still holding out some false hope that we would go back to school eventually in the new year. But over time, obviously, your hopes kind of dwell and get smaller every passing day. But like, I just remember last summer, we were going into summer and we were like talking about what if there would be an 8th grade musical, what would we want the musical to be? We were just talking as if everything would go back to normal because we were hoping it would. But the things that we missed out on, we're never going to get back. And we all know that it's not that drastic as other people's situations in, elementary school. Elementary school kids have it a lot harder than we do, and so do high school kids. And so I think that we are lucky, but at the same time, it's hard to, fathom what's happening.
Yeah, and I remember every quarter they'd say, "Oh, we're gonna try to go back this quarter. Oh, we're gonna go back next quarter." And now that it's pretty much the end of third quarter, going on fourth, it's sort of just sinking in that we lost our entire eighth grade year.
Yeah,
And next year we're going to go to a new school and we're gonna have to readjust to normal school.
I feel like time feels like it's going by super fast but super slow at the same time. Because I don't know, it's just we're approaching the end of the school year, and I feel like it just went by super fast. But then also, I think back to the days where I'm sitting at my desk in my room, and like the minutes are just ticking away, and I'm like, this is never going to end. This is what I'm doing today and tomorrow and next week and the week after, and continuously until June 24th. And then I get out of
Yeah.
school June 24th, and then summertime. And obviously, COVID summers are different because it's just not what anyone's used to, and it's so aggravating.
It's really the strangest thing because a lot of times it's April. What like it's how is it April?
I
But
know.
then it's like each day is like, oh my God, okay, I gotta get through this. And it feels so slow, but the weeks feel fast.
Yeah, I think the growth that everyone has like made from the pandemic, like someone asked me like if you could go back to last year, would you do it and like experience everything? And I'm just saying no, because without the pandemic, I wouldn't be who I am now. And like a lot has changed since the pandemic. Like if we went back to school, there are kids we wouldn't recognize. There are kids who might look the same but would just act different. And personalities changed, and like us, like we're going through like changing into older kids. So it's definitely interesting. And like especially with mm, I mean both our birthdays were like early in the pandemic, and you just think back to, wow, my last birthday wasn't super far. It doesn't feel like that long ago, but like when I look back at pictures, like I don't even remember how I was back then because everything's just been so different.
Yeah, the pandemic also brought to light a bunch of like sort of who your true friends are. The friends you'd keep in contact with are who
Oh
stuck
yeah.
around.
Yeah.
Because it was so easy to lose contact with someone if you didn't talk to them for a week,
Yeah.
and then you just wouldn't have a reason to.
Yeah, I definitely have not just friends from school who I try to reach out to, but people kind of just fade away slowly and you see them online, but it's just not the same because no one turns their camera on and no one, says hello, and you don't get to talk about stuff in class like you used to. I just remember partner work in school with your friends, you're kind of just talking about everything, not just school, but you're talking about what's going on in your lives. And that's how, real relationships like that are established. And now but only the really strong ones have come through the pandemic. And like a part of any relationship is working towards it becoming that strong relationship. But if you had, if you were just breaking out of your shell during the pandemic, or if you're just trying to expand your social circle, it's really hard.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like talking to people, you're talking to them to get the work done because that's all you really either share in common or all you know about each other anymore. Um, with some of my old friends, like I don't know how to talk to them even if I wanted to try.
Yeah,
And it's that way with a lot of things. Like doing the work, it doesn't feel like I'm learning a lot. It's sort of I'm doing the work to do the work.
I agree. I think there are definitely kids out there who, make fun of what we've had during the pandemic and the education we've been getting. And a lot of us are very lucky, but then you look back and it's really a year lost and a year's worth of education that we've only gotten a portion of. And life is just very different now. But with school, a lot of young parents of younger children are holding their kids back because you're missing vital information, even if it's just learning the alphabet or learning, simple math that like helps your brain develop. They're missing all of that. And if you can't comprehend that as a young kid, you're going to have to learn it again in person. That's just how things work. And so I personally feel bad because so many kids are going to be held back, and it's not their fault, and it's not a good thing. No parent wants to hold their kid back, but if they need it because of this situation, it's going to be hard.
And that can happen even for kids our age and older,
Yeah.
especially like at the high school level, because a lot of high school is a really important year. Like each year in high school is really important. And junior year is especially, the most important. But like I don't think like, and I understand schools aren't taking SAT scores this year, like it's optional,
Yeah.
but that just seems like the bare minimum. Like these kids don't have, community service hours. They don't have the same resources that kids from years before had.
Yeah.
And it just seems that they're at a giant disadvantage.
I mean, it's not their fault at the same time. Like, all of the sudden, SAT stuff and even our standardized testing, our PARC test, all that's kind of disappearing. And if we go back, the SAT has been a staple in high school students' lives for generations. Like, our parents took the SATs, our parents' took the SATs. But like, the fact that we might not go that traditional route anymore just because the pandemic stopped a lot kind of is interesting. And we've been taking PARC tests since third grade. And like, I don't know, just not doing those tests, it's a load off your brain, but then it just reminds you again, this isn't normal.
Yeah, and I don't know what it's going to be like moving on because we don't know how long it's going to take to reincorporate our normal lives. And I don't know if our school is going to be the same ever or just while we're going.
Yeah, I don't think when people say nothing's ever going to be the same, it kind of upsets me because it's like, it's the harsh truth, but at the same time, it's disappointing because you've been focusing on getting back to normal, and people are like, we're going to create a new normal, but I
It's
don't
not
know.
the same.
It's definitely not the same, and that's just really depressing.
On that note, next week on Pandemic Chit Chat, we'll bring to light some of the happier topics. The first month of school will just be ending. September, fall brings around a lot of fun things. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on Pandemic Chit Chat.